Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our Monday evening show. And here we are. We're now well in November, and I hope this one finds you well. We're putting this one out over on everywhere, basically Facebook, YouTube, over in the Getters, on X, on Facebook. God knows where. We're broadcasting to Mars, actually. That's to say, we're the first podcast to go live to Mars, probably. So anyway, if you like what you hear and you know what to do, subscribe, hit the like button, all that kind of stuff, and support us as best you're evening, as best you're able to. So listen, it's been a really lively few days politics-wise, and hi there, Sue. It's great to have our special guest with us this evening. I was able to appear chatting on his show not that long ago. Hello, Angela from Manchester. And I shouldn't probably mock the Manchester accent given he's coming, but why not? And I'm delighted he's coming on with me. He's got a great book out, which we're going to talk about that. But there's a few other things we need to talk about first, I think. So without any further ado, he's sitting there very patiently in the background. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Nick Buckley. Nick, good evening.
Good evening, and thank you for the invitation again to be on your show.
Real pleasure, absolute pleasure. Now, you know, I don't know about you, but I find on social media, you know, there's some people who are consistently sensible, and you're one of them. There's others who go all over the place, really, you know, and I cling to sensible people as best I can because it's a tricky old world we're in, Nick, you know, and yeah, so I do enjoy, just so you know, I do enjoy the stuff that you put out. Because I think what you say is what an awful lot of people think. So, yeah, have we got a whole Manchester mafia on here? I'm not sure. We might have. But anyway, you're all welcome. Wherever you're from, you did not just from Manchester, from everywhere. So Nick, before we get into the main topic, which I want to get to, I want to ask your opinion on the BBC is making headlines today for all the wrong reasons, and I'm loving it. So, you know, as you know, I mean, Donald Trump's apparently talking about suing them for £1 billion, and this is all over leaked correspondence, where they fiddled around with a speech that he made on January 6th. I'm sure viewers will remember they did do that, but they also did a lot of stuff in terms of, you know, censoring discussion on LGBTQ plus issues, discussions on Gaza and Israel. So Nick, what's your stance on the fact there's been these two big resignations? Is that enough? What should happen next with the BBC?
The BBC is in eternal decline. I don't see a future for the BBC the way we see the BBC today. Yep. The people don't want to pay the license. I don't meet anyone. Most people I meet don't even have a license. And the ones who have a license really begrudge paying £180 a year for the license. It's outdated. It's an outmoded way of funding a public broadcaster. Maybe when the BBC was set up, what was 100 years ago, whenever it was, maybe then there was a need for the BBC. It's not needed now. But then looking at the state of the BBC, we've known for decades now. I've not watched the BBC in decades. And we know it's biased, which is fine. Everyone's biased. You're biased. Okay. I'm biased. Yep. We're all biased. But at least me and you have the decency to say, I'm biased. And what I'm going to say is my opinion.
Correct.
The BBC do the opposite. The BBC say, this is not biased. This is 100% the truth. And these are not opinions. These are facts. And we're there going, you liar. You're liar or you're deluded. Because everyone has a bias. It's just a naturally built into us. They don't represent the people anymore. They don't represent the working class. It's basically a propaganda arm, an indoctrination arm of the so-called establishment, of the elite. They use their programs, their dramas, their comedies for decades now to continually bombard us with the correct messages. These are the correct messages that you can listen to. And hopefully, once we give you enough of these messages, maybe you'll be a better person. Maybe you'll be a little bit more like us at the BBC.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, about 26 years ago, I remember setting up a blog back in the days when blogs were a thing called Bias BBC, still going. And I set it up fundamentally to talk about the biases of the BBC. And you're absolutely right, Nick. We're all biased. It would be very weird if we weren't biased, to be honest. But the BBC pretends that it's this neutral overlord that just gives us the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but. And that's what sickens me. And what I do, one of my favorite forms of self-torture is to watch every now and again BBC Question Time on a Thursday night, which, believe you me, is I'm sure you've caught it at least sometime. It's like from hell because the audience is biased, Fiona Bruce is biased, but they go through this pretense. And, for about, I suppose, about 10 years, I regularly appeared on the BBC until I was a bad boy and told them that I wanted to see Trump get elected in 2015, 16, and that I want 100% behind leaving the European Union. And that was it, out the door, never to be dark in their doorstep. If they just would accept what you've said, Nick, they're biased. But the other thing is the 3.7 billion a year they get in the license tax. That's the real kicker for me. Just defund them and then sink or swim. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. That's the way it has to be. If there's a market for the BBC, then let the people who want the BBC fund the BBC. Yeah. I don't necessarily want the BBC to go under, because if people find value in it, then they should fund it to keep on going. Absolutely fine. But here's an example. I was at the BBC being interviewed a year and a half ago when I was running for Mayor of Greater Manchester.
Yep.
And at the end of the interviewer said to me, Nick, I know you've got something about the BBC. I know you don't like us, but we are very diverse here. All of it. He went, if you go at my office now, my door now, the first person you come to is a black woman, then it's a Chinese guy. The person behind him is an immigrant. They've only been in the country 10 years. And he went on through his office. So I said to him, that's fine, but I can guarantee 100% of all your staff all support Black Lives Matter and all support the LGBT agenda. And he went, yeah. I went, so you're not diverse then, are you?
No, it's not. It's not diverse thinking. It's like leftism all around the world. The diversity, it only applies to particular things, but not the thought, because they reinforce thought. But it is. I mean, I never met anyone in the BBC over the years I did it, Nick, who was anything other than left-leaning. Like they were all left-leaning, and it's a culture thing. I don't even know that they know it, but which explains why the chairman of the BBC, I see that guy Samir Singh comes out today and said, "Look, let's get this clear. There's no institutional bias in the BBC." And I'm laughing, and I'm thinking you should be sacked as well. Yeah. Of course it is. It's institutionally biased. But Nick, if people like that, and you make a very profound point, that's fine, it's okay, but don't force us to pay for it or threaten people with jail, because some people have gone to jail over not paying their TV license. Go to the subscription model, and then it's your choice, which we believe in, free choice.
Absolutely. Subscription, or do what ITV do, and advertisements. So how they fund themselves is down to them. But I think a huge part of the problem with the BBC is the license fee. Yeah. As in, they have no commercial interest in being successful. They have no commercial interest of tapping into new audiences and delivering what the people want them to deliver. They live in their own little bubble where they go, I've just been given £15 million to develop this project, and I can make this project however I want it to be. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how many people watch it. It doesn't matter, because I'm going to get 15 million next year to create another program. But if at the end of that year, and they were commercial interest, and their bosses said, that 15 million, we got 50,000 views on that, you're sacked. We're not producing that ever again. Then suddenly they would start delivering things that the people actually want to watch. But there's no financial commercial interest. And I think that is what drives them to this failure.
Yeah, I think you did, right? I listened to the BBC at 5 o'clock this evening, talking about the Trump the fact that Trump, I think, has sent them a legal letter suggesting that he may sue for $1 billion. And they were laughing. They were saying, oh, well, I mean, we could always give them maybe 20, 30 million pounds of licensed payer taxes.
Yeah.
And as you said, it's actually saying like it's because there's no pain for them. If if we owned that organization and someone came after us for that, you'd be a terrible place. But they don't care. It's not, they don't need the money's coming in, and that's it. The end.
Even though it's not part of government, it's run just like the council. I've worked for councils. It's not their money. It's funny money. It doesn't matter what we do. We can never get sacked. We can do what we want, basically. We're all left-leaning. We all think the same. It doesn't matter because our budgets are all renewed next year. We don't have to worry about not getting money because of the license fee. And we have armed police enforcing the license fee. And people might go, oh, Nick, you're exaggerating there. Well, no, I'm not. This is how it happens. You've got to buy a license fee, so you don't. So then you're watching TV and get caught. You get pulled to court. You don't turn up. Police will turn up at your house to take you to court to arrest you because you failed at turning up at court, or you didn't pay your fine if you went to court. And if you don't let the police in your house, eventually armed police will turn up at your house. Why? Because of the license fee. Now, that's only a small percentage, but at the end of the day, that fee is enforced by armed police in this country. And what sort of country has to enforce you to listen to political indoctrination?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the other thing is that there's millions of people turning away from the BBC, Nick, not getting their license. I think since 2020, I think 2.5 million people have stopped, buying their license tax. And then the other thing is, if you go to the Gen Z people, the youngins, they don't watch it at all. Like, they're not getting their media from the BBC, Sky, Channel 4. They're just not doing it. So I think the BBC will naturally come to sort of an end in terms of this model anyway, because your point is valid. They're making programs for, I think, some of the politics ones, they're making it for themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of the dramas, people go, oh, but they make fantastic dramas, and they may do. I don't watch them, but let's say they are good. Let's give that as a given. The BBC don't make them. They outsource it to independent film companies to make them. So ITV could make the same stuff with the same company. It doesn't have to be the BBC. And, and the BBC really, this is what upsets me about the BBC most of all. When I was younger, like most of our institutions, like the army, the police, like Parliament, many of our institutions were looked upon around the world as first class. If you're going to do something, do it like the British do it, because it's first class. You turn up anywhere in the world as a BBC reporter and go, I'm from the BBC. And people go, wow, the BBC. And they've fallen so fast and so low, just like the rest of the country.
Well, we're going to talk about that actually. So, let's move on then from the BBC, and we'll enjoy the misery of the BBC. And to all my BBC friends, I'm loving it. Nick, the migrant issue. As we know, the whole Starmer has presided over record levels of cross-channel migration this year. I think it's up to just shy of under 40,000, which is up from 36,000 the previous year. But the bit that got me was, and I'm sure you've seen this as well, that this whole thing about, we're going to, if some of them we will be deporting back to France, even though we have to take one in exchange, one in, one out. But this happened the other week, and then there was another one today. Migrants, this was an Iranian, I think, Nick, who was deported back in September. Well, he's back again in the UK. It's boomerang. These guys are boomeranging in and out. What's your take on the ones who are sent back but then come back here again?
First of all, we all knew this was going to happen. Of course, if we deported them, they were going to try to get back in again. I've been kicked out of nightclubs when I was younger. And what did I do? I tried to get back in the nightclub. Of course, I tried to get back in, because what's going to happen to me? They'll kick me out again. It's no deterrent. And that's exactly what happened with us deporting people to France. And we deported them to France, which, that sounds good, Nick. It might not be many, but it sounds good. Well, no, because then we take another migrant in exchange. So our numbers stay the same. And the craziest thing is this, which most people don't know, but Google it. It's been in the press and everything. Everyone we deport back to France, we give them £3,000 to go.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we then give them the fare to get on the next illegal boat to come back again.
Yeah.
I think we're idiots governed by fools, and we must be idiots because we allow this to happen.
Yeah, I mean, we all knew this was never going to work. I think this is a government run by sound bites. It's about a sound bite that kind of seems maybe plausible, but underneath it, there's just nothing, you know. And as you say, they're getting 3,000 quid. Some of them will take that and go back to whatever hellhole they came to for a year and live like kings. You know, if you come from Eritrea and someone gives you $3,000, I think I read that's about 10 years salary or whatever. So you live like a king for a year, then come back. So yeah, I mean, how do you think? Can I ask you, how do you think we should deal with the cross-channel migration issue?
I think any government with a backbone could solve this problem in 48 hours. It isn't a difficult problem to solve if you have a backbone. We stopped Napoleon, we stopped Hitler, we stopped the Spanish Armada. That little channel has stopped the greatest forces in European history. And 50 migrants on a blow-up boat, we can't stop. Of course we can stop them. There's no will. What we should do is we have boats in the channel. We have drones up in the air. We spot a boat coming. It gets intercepted. We take the people off the boat. We put them onto a Royal Navy carrier. They're arrested, put on there until that boat is full of migrants over several weeks, several months. Then we sail that boat to the Ascension Islands in the South Atlantic, and we camp them there. After a week of doing that, no one else is crossing that channel. Every illegal migrant in the country should be arrested and interned in camps until we deport them. And the ones we can't deport and we can't figure out where they come from, we send them to the same islands in the South Atlantic as well. And within a week, no one else is coming because France, Italy, and Spain all look better than getting to England like snakes and ladders and going down the snake all the way to the Ascension Islands in the South Atlantic.
Well, that's a good suggestion, actually. Yeah, I mean, that's probably more practical than my suggestion, which is collect them, like you say, and send them all back to where they came from. And that is France. France needs... See, France isn't a friendly country. I'm going there in a couple of weeks' time, which amuses me because I'm going to France, and this Iranian migrant who has been deported and he's come back, he said he was escaping France because it was so awful there. And I'm going for a holiday there, you know, it's so bad. But we have to do something. That you're dead right. It's about being serious in this issue. And if we're honest about it, the Tories weren't serious about it at all. And Labour are even less serious about it. So it does take backbone and spine.
It does. And sending them to France isn't the answer, because it's me being kicked out of the nightclub. You just try again. That isn't the answer. And I know we have a long history of disliking the French. With one of our wars lasted over 100 years. I mean, you've got to dislike someone to fight for 100 years. But I don't blame the French at all. Why wouldn't they want to get rid of their scum and let them just cross the channel?
I would do exactly the same.
I don't blame the French. I blame our weak, pathetic governments.
Yeah, well, you can sort of see how it works, as you say. Like the migrants are coming across from places like Italy, they're coming around up through France, and the Italians don't want them. I don't blame them. The French definitely don't want them, but they'll come here, and all we have is Stormer who postures about it, and it's so embarrassing. You know, when you look at what Donald Trump's achieved now in the States, you know, like pretty much stop dead all migration through the southern border. It's incredible. And you look at what Stormer's done, which is, well, it's gone up. So yeah, it's embarrassing business, isn't it?
It is, but the Tories didn't stop it for the same reason Labour didn't stop it, and this is the reason now. It's because both those parties, the Uni Party, all believe in globalism, all believe in the global good, all believe in the WEF, believe in NATO, believe in the EU, believe in all these multinational treaties and organizations. So therefore they say to themselves, well, we can't do something just to improve my country if it has a negative effect on someone else's country. That's just not playing ball, is it? That's not fair. And I'm an internationalist. I want a global community, and I'm the opposite. I'm like, sod the global community. Let people in those countries have the countries they want and run the countries the way they want to run it. Who are we to tell other countries how to run themselves? So let them do that and let us run our country. And we run our country by having strong borders. If you've got strong borders, then you have good neighbours. And at the moment, we haven't got good neighbours because we haven't got borders.
No, yeah, it's very, very sensible. Yeah, I agree with that. Well, actually, in a way, that sequences into the thing that I really want to chat to you about. And that is, you've got another great book out, which I think hopefully we can bring up on screen, called Anglophobia. There we go, Anglophobia, which is really interesting, folks. I would suggest that you pick up a copy here. You can buy it on Amazon and other places as well. But
it's only available on Amazon. I self-published it on Amazon.
It's self-published. There you go. Anglophobia. We're trying to get in big writing so people with bad eyesight like me can see it. But no, so the thing about it is, Nick, first of all, let's start off. What is Anglophobia?
So Anglophobia means two things, really. Traditionally, it means fear or dislike of the English.
Yeah.
But it's changed. It's what's the word I'm looking for? It's grown now. It now basically means hatred and dislike of white people. That's what it really means. It started off with the English, and then it meant the British, then it meant the Anglosphere, but now it just means white people.
Yeah. I mean, the point about I want to start off on the English aspect of it, because as someone who's self-evidently not English, I do appreciate and have always appreciated the contribution of English people to what is this United Kingdom. And I think there's a lack of respect for English people in places like Scotland, and even to a lesser degree maybe where I live, but certainly in Scotland anyway, there's a great hatred almost, SNP and all that.
Yeah.
But I think that comes from, does it come from ignorance? Do they not understand the contributions that English people have made throughout history? And also a failure to understand that if we look at the tax base of the United Kingdom, without England, sorry, we're bust. Our lifestyles where I live, and I'm an opponent of the Barnett formula, by the way. I think it's wrong that English taxes are dispersed to Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland disproportionately to England. I think that's wrong. But that's me now. I'm a bit of an oddball like that. I am genuinely wanting to see fairness. But yeah, this Anglophobia, the hatred of the English. Yeah. And you think, I mean, in your book, it's pretty clear that you do think that this is something that is very real and very apparent in everyday life.
Oh, absolutely. So Anglophobia starts with the Irish, Scots, and the Welsh, the Celtic nations, and that's because England was the biggest country on these islands and the strongest, and took over other countries. I get that. And that's where it really started. But for people who, I mean, here's a good example. Out of the 4 countries that make up the United Kingdom, only the English have to pay for prescriptions.
Yeah, you're right.
Northern Ireland don't, Scots don't, Welsh don't, because English taxes fund your prescriptions 100%. And the English have always bent over backwards to try to make sure that the other countries weren't too pissed off. So, but something really strange has happened over the last year or two, which is the rise of the English, especially the last 6 months. The English, not so much because of our Celtic neighbours now, but because of mass immigration, the English now are going, whoa, what's happening to my country? We took a bit of crap off our cousins, the Irish, the Scots. We took a bit of that, but we're used to that. But now we've got third world people coming here now, so the English are beginning to wake up and roar and have their voice heard. But why? Let's look at the Scots. So why do the Scots dislike, well, not all the Scots, but it's a large minority of people there. I saw
Mm.
that in the 2014 referendum.
Yeah, it was
That's when
obvious.
I realized how much some Scots hate the English. And it was like,
Mm.
wow, you never get that the other way around. You
Nope.
never get that the other way around. And part of it is nationalism. Nationalism does bring that out in people. You perceive the other as the enemy. But then I write about this in the book. Part of it really is jealousy and envy. That's what part of it is. And this happens with all the countries around the world. You
Mm.
look at England or you look at Great Britain and you say to yourself, why are they successful? So the Scots are going, why is England so successful? The Nigerians and Indians are going, why is the UK so successful? So
Mm.
successful? And there's only two answers.
Mm.
One is we're better than them, or the second answer is we cheat and we steal and we lie. So of course, the most
Mm.
palatable answer is, oh, use a cheats, use a steals, use a thieves. That's why
Mm.
the
Mm.
UK is successful. That's why England is successful, and it's a way of compensating for the failure of your ancestors.
Mm.
That's what we're trying to, not compensating for your failure or my success. I'm not successful. I've not built anything up in this country, but my ancestors did, and
Mm.
they passed that down the line to me to live in a first world country.
Mm.
So a lot of it comes down to jealousy and envy, which are two very strong emotions in humans.
They are, but you made a really good point. If we look at England in the past 6 months, like you say,
Mm,
like what I've seen observed with the fly the colors, fly the flags, all of that. I mean, to me, I was very inspired by that. Where I live, we've been flying the colors and flying the flag for a very long time. I can tell you, I
yeah.
can take you to villages here in Northern Ireland, and the Union flags are from one end of the.
Mm,
But that's because we've been under kind of attack,
yeah.
for a long time and
Yeah.
trying to remove our Britishness. But to me, when I see St. George's flag flying, to me, I think that's really brilliant. And the Union flag as well.
Mm.
But have you been surprised at the hatred that you've seen towards the flying of St. George's flag, the English flag?
I've not been surprised because I expected it, because I've
Mm.
lived with this all my life. All my life in my country, and I'm
Mm.
57. All my life,
Mm.
the St. George's flag and the Union Jack have always represented racism. That's what I've been told all my life, that
Mm.
they're racist flags. It's a racist country. And I never believed it. Most people don't believe it, but we've been told this all our lives. And because the English are very tolerant, and we don't get excited that much, we've just ignored them and let them get on with it. And we're not the type of people to wave flags and do patriotism that much, because we've always been comfortable about who we are and our
Yeah.
place in the world. But
Yeah.
the reason why it started now is we're not comfortable anymore, and we're not certain of our place in the world, because many people now can see England dying. And the question I keep asking people, and I think I've mentioned it in the book, if England dies, where do the English go? Because
Nope.
we're something like 72% now white British in this, in the UK.
That's right. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
sorry, is it 82? It might be.
80,
It's
it's
something.
just over 80. Yeah.
It's some, but another 50 years, how is it going to be then? And if we keep importing third world migrants into the country, nothing wrong with third world migrants. If I was born in that part of
No.
the world, I'd want better. I'd want to leave. I don't blame them. And they're not all perverts and rapists and criminals. Some
No.
of them are, but not all of them are. So this is not anti-migrant. This is anti-mass immigration. If they keep coming, then our country is going to end up like their home country. Because if they
Yeah.
had the skills to build a first world country, they'd live in a first world country,
They
but
would
they
have done it.
don't. They don't. So they come here,
No.
and we allow. I mean, this again, English tolerance. So we started mass immigration. What did we say? What did we do with all the migrants? Come here, live in your own neighborhoods, practice your
Mm.
own religion, your own culture. Just
Mm.
pretend you're back home where you came from, and that's fine. And it's
Mm.
like, well, it wasn't fine. We should have said to them, you live here, these are the rules. So keep your religion. Any man, woman can practice any religion they want, absolutely. But these are the cultures of this country, traditions of this country. And you integrate, and we expect your children to assimilate
Mm.
That's what we should have been saying to people. And if you don't, we deport you. But we didn't. We told them to come and do whatever you want. And they came and did whatever they want because we told them to. And now we think we've got a problem with it. Well, we should have done something 70 years ago.
Yeah, you're right. And actually, one of the I've got two questions for you here. The first one is, if I look at the UK as a whole, the white British in England is down to about 80%. Where I am, it's about 95%.
Yeah.
Scotland's 90, sort of not too far away from that, and I think Wales, apart from Cardiff, similarly. So it's like it's England that's being changed the fastest, Nick, and yet England is the dominant. If you were wanting to destroy the UK, you destroy England. So that's for so I want you to comment on that. And the second thing I want you to comment on is that I see in parts of England, English towns, Pakistani flags flying. Oh, that's great. That doesn't intimidate anybody. But the sight of St. George's fly across, they're having the vapors. So on those 2 points, England's the one that's falling the fastest, and yet you're the biggest part. That's very worrying, Nick.
It is, and you're right. If you want to destroy the UK, destroy England. But let's narrow it down a bit more than that. If you want to destroy England, destroy London.
Well,
London's almost destroyed, because if London goes, the financial heart of the country, the beating heart. If it wasn't for London, the rest of the UK would be a third world country, because that's where the money's earned and the money's made. So, but London's awful now. Absolutely a crime-ridden hellhole where there's hardly any white people. No one speaks English. Antisocial behaviour. We have signs in London now saying, "Don't defecate on the street." Don't defecate on the street. Signs in London. And it's like, what have we imported? Now, that's fine in their country, absolutely fine. Shit in the street where you come from. But I don't want you shitting in streets in London.
No.
So London's dying. And I'm not sure we can save London. I'm really not sure how we would save it. But then with the flags, you're right. There's certain parts of the UK, certain towns and certain areas of the cities where you'll walk down that street and you think you're in a foreign country. You won't see any white people. No one speaks English. There's Pakistani flags. There's 3 Palestine flags, or there's Bangladeshi flags, or there's this flag. You'll know where you are by the flags that are flying. You only fly a foreign flag after you've conquered a country. So we're being conquered. Those little areas now are little Karachi, little Mogadishu, little Bangladesh, because they've colonized those parts of towns and cities. And another thing, if you're not allowed to fly your own flag in your country, that also means you've been conquered.
Yes. You're right. You're right. I mean, can I ask you, what did you think of Birmingham, the Aston Villa, Maccabi Tel Aviv situation that prevailed in the Aston part of Birmingham? Because that looked to me like, didn't look English to me anymore. That area. To your point, Nick, places are changing where they're not recognizable as English or even British.
No, absolutely. And what I took out of that was, not only is immigration out of control, and not only do we have certain communities now wielding power, they now wield political power. We had Muslim MPs in Parliament wanting, and finally got, the banning of that Israeli team coming to Birmingham. Whether or not they should be banned or not, different discussion altogether. But we had MPs in Parliament demanding that. We had local councillors demanding that. We had the councillors telling the police that's what they wanted.
Yeah.
This is the two-tier system we keep talking about, where we have different societies living among and hidden within the larger society. And now that political Islam have found a foothold in our main politics in Parliament, we've got 4 or 5 political Islamic MPs now. The Green Party is slowly turning into an Islamic party. And if Jeremy Corbyn ever pulls his finger out and gets your party up and running, that's an Islamic party. The Muslims don't need Labour anymore now. They're abandoning Labour. We've got our own people now. We've got our own people to give us what we want. This is the balkanization of the UK, especially England. And someone in Northern Ireland, you know what balkanization leads to. We saw it
Yep.
in Yugoslavia. We
Yep.
saw 30, 40 years of troubles in Northern Ireland.
Yep.
And those differences don't have to be big. I mean, in your country, it was Christians fighting Christians. It doesn't have to be big differences, because we're tribal creatures, and we will fight for the survival of our people, our family, our traditions, our norms. We'll fight for that, because we are violent creatures at the end of the day. But our country now is on the verge, and I've been saying this for well over a year now. We're on the verge in England, in our big cities, of civil war.
Well,
Yeah.
hold that thought. We'll get to civil war. That's a very
Right.
important point. There's a chapter in your book on the British Empire, the whole issues of slavery and racism. And one of the questions I wanted to ask you is, Nick, do you think that the importance of the British Empire in civilizing parts of the world, ending the slave trade, do you think that's been almost completely just ignored, censored, not spoken of, not taught in schools? And why would that be?
Absolutely. I think it does need to be taught in school. And I don't mean propaganda. I don't say just because we did some great things, we also did some terrible things. So I want us to be taught everything.
Yeah.
So, just because the propaganda works in my favor, I still don't want it, because it's propaganda. But yeah, we did some amazing things. It was the British who stopped the international slave trade. Other countries joined afterwards and helped us, but we started it. And people don't understand how big that was. Up to, it was started by English people, English Quakers. So up to them saying, we think slavery is wrong, everybody else in the world thought it was natural. And it had always been natural, and it had been practiced for 100,000 years since humans were created. It's hard to imagine someone coming along and telling the rest of the world, this thing you think is normal is evil. Can you imagine someone coming along now saying eating meat is evil, and we're going to fight wars to make you stop eating meat? That's how big it was, stopping slavery. The Africans didn't want to stop slavery because they were making far too much money out of it. We've got letters written by kings in African kingdoms to Queen Victoria, begging her to stopping the slave trade, and saying to her, this is our God-given right. We have always taken slave from our neighbors. This is what we do. We teach our children when they're born that one day you're going to take a slave and make money. And these were Africans. White Europeans never, ever captured a black person and turned him into a slave. Never happens.
No.
White Europeans sailed ships to African ports where the Africans already had slave markets, and we bought slaves that had been captured and enslaved by black Africans. Black Africans started the slave trade, ran the slave trade, made a fortune out of the slave trade. And for 200 years, we partook in it. But eventually the British said no more. It damaged us financially, but we ended it across the world, the international slave trade. And we're called racist today.
Well, how do you then feel when you hear certain politicians, Labour politicians, demanding reparations? It's time to. David Lammy's talked, our deputy leader in the Commons has called for billions to be transferred over to the Caribbean. How do you feel about that?
Oh, I smile and I giggle to myself, because if I was stood in front of him, he'd get an answer. But he says these things to people who've got no education, like the rest of Parliament, who all go, oh, I don't know what to say, I'll say nothing. I'd be saying, excuse me, the Right Honourable Deputy Leader of the Labour Party, let me tell you this. Great Britain doesn't owe you a penny in reparations. Great Britain took out one of the biggest loans in the world to free your ancestors in the Caribbean. We bought the slavery of every slave in the British Empire. We bought their slavery. Then we spent another fortune patrolling the high seas, stopping Africans selling Africans into slavery. Now, if you're owed reparations, and maybe you are owed reparations, then I suggest you go speak to black Africans living in Africa, because they're the ones who captured your ancestors and sold them into slavery. And if you look down your family tree Mr. Lammy, I'm sure you will find some of your family members were also slavers, because you were capturing each other and selling each other. This was happened all over the continent. This was a black problem, a bit like black on black crime at the moment. This is a black problem. It's your problem. And how you should be thinking about the British. And all I want to hear from you, Mr. Lammy, is thank you, Great Britain. Thank you. That's what I want to hear from you.
Yeah, but there's no gratitude at all.
No.
I mean, but Lammy also sums up something that you talk about in another chapter in the book, Nick, which is white envy, and the fact that and you know and it's so obvious that there seems to be you've developed, it's a good term, white envy. Describe white envy and why it matters.
It does. So this is very simplistic, but it's like this. If you look at the Western world and look at what the UK and England have achieved for tiny islands off the coast of Europe in the middle of nowhere, if you look at what we've achieved, and then you look at your ancestors and what you've achieved and your ancestors, and if the biggest thing, the best thing they ever developed was a mud hut, and then you see our cathedrals, you see the creation of medicine and science and the railways and everything we've created on these islands, everything we create the modern world. And if you look at that and then you look at your ancestors, you say to yourself, my ancestors failed me. My ancestors failed me. So rather than admit my ancestors weren't as good as they should have been, I'm just going to attack them. I'm going to find things that they may have done wrong. I had some guy on the internet today saying to me that it wasn't to me directly, it was in a thread, but he was saying, black African guy who lives over here, by the way. He doesn't want to live over there. He wants to live here. And he was saying there's historical cookbooks from colonial times in Africa. So white European cookbooks about how to cook black babies. And I'm like, oh, shut up, you tart. You tart. If you're going to make up a lie, just based on something that possibly could be true. But you said we made cookbooks to eat black babies. You're just an idiot. But some people, I Googled it then, and some people do believe this. Of course, there's no historical evidence whatsoever. As if we'd eat babies. Never mind black babies. Would we eat babies? I mean, but some of this hence, the more crazy the lie, the more attention it gets, the bigger audience it gets, the more chance more people will believe it.
And on the topic of empire, which is again, just to go back to that, I mean, the British Empire was a major global empire, and there's always been empires. There was the Roman Empire. I think we live through the American Empire at the moment. It's just, by and large, Nick, I look upon the British Empire as it wasn't perfect, because none are, but it was a force for good in many ways. But the amount of, and I get this from friends. I've got friends living in many different parts of the world, including former parts of the world which were all part of the British Empire. I think there is a kind of I don't know what's like karma's a bitch, Brits, you deserve all you get. There's an element of that about it, that they kind of do resent that. But I take a view, well, you should be thankful it was a British Empire you lived under, because if it was an Islamic empire, you might find it a wee bit trickier, or other forms of empire. So no empire is perfect, Nick, but the British Empire wasn't a bad empire.
I mean, if you lived under the French Empire, you'd spend all your day wishing it was the British Empire. The French Empire was awful. I mean, just look at North America, Haiti, all those places. They all wished they were under the British Empire. If you had to draw a list of all the empires in the world and list them from the most benevolent to the most evil, the British Empire would be at the top of the list for the most benevolent empire ever to exist. Hence, I mean, this is how great the British Empire was. We were the only empire who dismantled the empire voluntarily. It wasn't through war. We slowly dismantled our empire and gave all those countries independence. We left all those countries in a better standing than when we found them.
Yeah.
And all those countries, not all of them, Ireland and America, I think, are the only two countries who never joined the Commonwealth. But everybody else went, we've got our freedom now. We want to be friends with you. We want to trade with you. But can we create a group where we're all together? And we created the Commonwealth.
Yeah.
That's how much we were hated by the countries we ruled, because we weren't hated. And if you go to any of those countries now, old people in India, old people in Nigeria, they'll tell you now it was better when the British ran this.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It was better.
It was.
And
yeah.
So and then if you compare, I write in the book, I write about the Ottoman Empire. Ottoman Empire is basically Turkey and all surrounding areas, and that was like 600 years old. That only ended at the end of the First World War. So we can compare the British Empire really to the Ottoman Empire. The Ottoman Empire was still selling slaves in 1918. Recorded in Istanbul, selling slaves on market. Some of them were white slaves. They murdered millions. They raided Europe and Asia and Africa for slaves, and heavily relied on the slave trade. Their agriculture was done by slaves. At one point, some of their cities were like 30, 40, 50% slaves. And you look at that, and you look at what the British was doing at the same time, and you go, wow, the British Empire was special. And the British Empire did some nasty things, but do you know what? Every country was doing nasty things to each other. Here's a stat out the book that no one knows. This blew my mind when I read this. At the height of American slavery, a black African slave working on a plantation in Mississippi lived 9 years longer than an Englishman in the north of England. That's how hard our lives were in England, especially in northern England, that an African slave lived 9 years longer. So I'm not arguing that slavery was good. My point is, we all had it hard. History's been hard to everybody. But then...
But the other thing, Nick, we gave the world the Industrial Revolution.
Yes.
And that transformed lives, and it's lifted billions of people out of poverty, actually. Because, as you say, like life was, you only have to read history to recognize how hard it was. I love reading about history, but when you read about, unless you were in the 1%, the elite, as you say, in north of England, places like that, it was tough. It was really tough. Along comes the Industrial Revolution, and everything's lifted up, and we gave it to the world. Do you know what I mean? So again, a great sense of national pride, I put it to you, we should have, and yet it's almost not talked about, which is frustrating.
It is, and part of that is no one knows history. No one's taught history anymore now. So people tell us lies, and most people go, "Oh, that must be true." It's only someone like me who knows a little bit of history where I can go, "Bollocks! I'm not having that."
Yeah.
But look, the British Empire. So not only did we give the world the Industrial Revolution, which changed the world, we gave the world our language. The English gave the world the English language. That's made it a much smaller world since then. Half the countries in the world use English common law as the basis for their legal system. So we gave law and order to the world. Medicines, and then, all the way up to the modern day. It was an Englishman who invented the World Wide Web. An Englishman.
Right.
Look at vaccines. In the book, I researched the 100 scientists who have saved the most lives ever. And out of 100, the 100 scientists who saved them, and they're all saving billions. Out of 100 of them, 97 were white Europeans.
Yeah.
One was Japanese, one was Korean, one was a black African American. But 97 were white Europeans, meaning North America as well, of descent.
No Somalis in there, Nick. No Somalis.
No Somalis, no Asians, no Chinese, one Japanese. And then I looked at the greatest inventions that have changed the world. Yeah. From what I can remember, the top 10, all 10, I think, were white.
Yeah.
You look at what white Europeans, so these all weren't English and weren't all just British, but you look at what Western white Europeans have delivered to the world. Yeah. And it's absolutely shocking when you look across the world and what other countries have developed. And look at now, you look, you look across the world and you think, what has your country or your people ever done? Because when white Europeans got to Africa 500 years ago, Africa was living in the Stone Age. No reading, no writing, no buildings more than ground level, no wheel, hardly any domesticated animals, hardly any farming. And it's like, and that's what we discovered 500 years ago. We gave him everything.
We did, and actually, because the final chapter of your book, I think it's what that's a bit like the Monty Python line. Yeah. What have the Romans ever done for us? What have the English ever done for us? And as you say, Nick, when you actually dive into it, which Nick does in his book, which is why you should buy his book, it's an incredible testimonial to English people. To me, it's like it's so amazing, and it's great that you've took the time to put this down, because people don't understand. This is the problem. If people don't understand their heritage, their history, they're so easily manipulated, Nick, in this country into hating themselves, which we shouldn't. We should be proud, and England should be absolutely proud of itself.
Absolutely. And there's a chapter in the book called Self-Hate or Self-Harm.
Self-harm, yeah.
And that's where I talk about British and English people who seem to hate themselves and hate their own country. So it's easy to understand why foreigners hate us, jealousy and envy. That's the answer there. But why do we have, educated English people and British people going, oh, we're terrible, we need to pay reparations and we're a terrible country? Why are they like that? And I go into lots of different mental health issues. So I don't make these up. These are all on the books. Most of them you've heard of. And I talk about the symptoms, how these people react, and I link it to what they're saying about woke ideology, about Black Lives Matter, about being, I think I talk about in that section, I talk about traitors. Some of these people are natural traitors, and traitors, being a traitor is a survival strategy. So that isn't something we just turn down and go, I'm going to be a bit traitorous today. It's built in some of us because it's how we survive, and we've passed those traits down. Where if you can sell out your own people to a different people and you're rewarded, that's a fairly good survival strategy, because you survive and then you get to pass your genes on. So these are different survival strategies, and I go into quite a lot of that.
Yeah, I see that, the whole national self-sabotage. But but I tell you, I wanted to circle back to, you mentioned London. We talked about London earlier on, Nick, and the fact that it's, and I agree 100%. I've been going to London for, God knows, many decades. I loved it. I used to love it in the 80s and the 90s. It was brilliant. Even in the noughties, started to change. And now, Nick, I despise London because it is in London. It's unrecognizable to me, just like New York's going to be unrecognizable to New Yorkers. It's a very similar thing. But when you see like our capital city almost occupied, and when you see a lot of politicians bearing down on the English people and the British people more generally, then the term civil war is bandied around. But I don't think foolishly at all. I think when we saw, for example, on that train, the one, the Peterborough, the Huntington train, where 11 people were hacked. Luckily, nobody died, but that was just more through happenstance. There's a fury that comes, certainly within me anyway. I put a tweet out about it. It got like a very significant response, because civil war is going to come unless we deal with the problems. And you don't want violence. I definitely don't want violence. But we have to recognize that we just cannot continue like this, Nick, and remain a country. We can't. So, what do you think is the best, if I asked you to avoid this what looks like almost an inevitable civil war, what do politicians need to do to turn things around?
This is what I think they need to do. This government would never do it. We need to listen to the people, and we need to do what the people want us to do. The people have been telling politicians for 70 years, over 70 years, that we don't want mass immigration. No. And I write about this in the book. In 1948, Empire Windrush boat landed
Yep.
in down south somewhere. A couple of hundred Caribbeans got off. 2 years after that, and more boats landed after that. 2 years later, the Labour government had to set up a special committee to look at immigration into the UK, because within those 2 years, people were saying we don't want any more of this. That was 1950. And every year, immigration has got bigger and bigger and bigger. And every year, the British people have said, we don't want any more of this. So if we're going to avoid civil war, several things need to be done. The first thing is we need to close the borders. So no more immigration. I would stop the world's best, amazing brain surgeon coming here and getting a visa and working. That I mean zero visas.
Net zero.
Yeah. And then we would have to. Then I'd want to deport in a year or two every illegal migrant in the country. Every illegal, and every migrant, everyone foreign born who's ever been in prison or has committed virtually any crime, all deported straight away. And then we have to look at legal migrants in this country who've come here legally, followed the rules and came here. So many of them have to go home. If they weren't born here, I would say not all of them, but many of them have to go home. And we do that by incentivizing them to go home. Such things like foreign borns have to pay more tax. So you pay more tax to stay here. Foreign born are not entitled to any services by the state, NHS, doctors, unemployment, and we start making it tougher and tougher for them wanting to stay here. We also say to them, in the first year or two, the money you've got, the collateral you've got here, you can sell and take home. But it will come to a stage in 2 years' time where we start deporting people. And when we deport you, we keep all your assets because that's going to pay for your deportation. So we incentivize people to start going home. Now, we'll have one where, we'll have an issue where, well, what do we when people are born here? That's where it starts getting tricky. So we're not going to get a full white country ever again. Those days are gone. Yeah. Because to get that, we would have to turn into Nazi Germany.
Yeah, we don't want
that. And that's a step too far for me. We're not going that far. Hence why, for me, it's if you weren't born here, then you're right for deportation. If you're born here and lived your life here, then that's complicated. If you've got dual nationality and you're a criminal, deportation. If you've got, if you're born here and you've never integrated, well, you need to integrate to get some of the services from the state. So we'd have to look at all that. If we start looking at that, then crime will fall, houses will become cheaper, more jobs will come available. Those jobs will be higher paid because there'll be less people wanting to do them. So market forces means we've got to pay more if we're going to get on doing those jobs. Next thing you know, our young people can afford to buy nice houses, are being paid well. They're going to want to have children because their lives are good. And then suddenly we've got that utopia people keep talking about. But at the moment, mass migration has a short-term benefit for weak politicians because it makes it look like our economy is growing, but it's only the short term. It's for this year's figures. But as we know, each low-paid migrant, by the time they retire, costs the taxpayer £500,000 each, and we're importing millions in every year.
I think you're right. And the other thing is, like, you talk about our public services, education, health, I suppose, particularly health. Like, these services are falling apart at the seams because they were never designed to cope with the migration numbers that have come in. So, so when I hear Labour talk about, they're just lying through their teeth. You cannot have world, best quality public services and high immigration. You can have one or the other. Choose a side. And I feel so bad when, for example, young British white boys in going into education, they get bad outcomes. But the system just doesn't work for them, and they're I think that's a shocker. That annoys the hell out of me, Nick, when I read about all these young white boys coming out barely able to read and write. That's a shocker.
Absolutely. Let me address the NHS first, then I'll go to white boys. Some things people don't know about the NHS. Something like 60 to 65% of all doctors who sexually abuse their patients are foreigners, all working in the NHS. So 65% of sexual assaults in the NHS by doctors are foreign doctors.
Yeah.
There's so many nurses working in our NHS who don't have qualifications. They bought illegal ones in their home country and came over here. We've got so many staff in the NHS who can't speak English, who are making mistakes, who can't read. That's so not only are we treating migrants and that's putting a strain on the NHS, but the people we're employing aren't good enough. And British trained doctors and nurses can't get jobs. I've got a family member who qualified as a nurse 2 years ago, cannot get a job in the NHS. She's a fully qualified nurse and she can't get a job because we're importing far too many foreign staff to work in the NHS. And then when we're talking about boys, excuse me, they've been failing in the UK for decades and decades.
They have, Nick.
And that's for two reasons. First reason is the boy. Second reason is the white. So our education system is designed by females, run by females for the benefit of girls. So our boys don't do well in that system because it wasn't designed
that's
for
fair
them.
point.
And a really good example of this is reading. So girls in class will be reading, they'll be reading whatever they're reading, Shakespeare, whatever like that, and boys are bored and boys don't want to read it. But if you give boys a book about pirates and shooting aliens in the face and army invading someone, they will read those books because they're interested in it. But we say, no, you can't read them because that's violent. You've got to read about a man and a boy and two women who are lesbian lovers, and they're going, I don't want to read this shit. So therefore I read nothing. So we don't treat boys like boys. Another thing is female teachers all the time shouting at boys to behave and to calm down. Why aren't you more like the girls? And it's like, well, we're not girls, are we? We're boys, and boys are different to girls. So therefore, you need to treat us as boys and allow us to do things boys do, which is run off some energy because we're building up energy here, and we're not going to sit down quite like girls. So boys are penalised in schools for being boys.
Well, you're right, and I mean, I've got 4 grandkids, Nick, 2 boys, 2 girls. And it's what you've just said, even from and they're all very young, they're all 5 and under. But even from that age, you can see the clear difference, the behavioral differences. Boys want to run about, jump, climb. I see it in my own house. They do all this stuff. Girls are much more likely to want to sit and play with dolls or whatever it is and do art. But that's okay. One's no better or worse than the others. But the system is loaded against the boys. Like as you say,
and then let's talk about white boys in general.
Yes. Okay.
So they're penalised for being boys, then they're penalised for being white. The reason why they're penalised for being white is because all these female teachers have all been through university where they've been indoctrinated with feminism ideas and critical race theory. So they look at these boys and they go, you're a white boy. That means you're going to be a white man, and white men rule the world. That means you're privileged. And the answer is no. First of all, he's a boy, and he might be, usually a working class boy. And just because a very small percentage of white men do exceptionally well in the country, it doesn't mean all white men do well, because more men in this country are unemployed, are homeless, are rough sleepers, are in jail, are alcoholics, are drug addicts, more likely to be assaulted, more likely to be murdered, more likely to take their own life. And it's like, where's the privileged in this? So feminist ideology and critical race theory is also part of the reason why in schools white boys are penalised, because they're seen as future Hitlers.
Yeah, it's mad, Nick. We've arrived at the end of our chat. I can see we've gone over. I knew we would do, but I think those are all actually really good points. If I can just suggest to everyone watching this and who watch this in replay as well, go along and pick up Nick's book. It's a really interesting fact-based polemic, and I agree entirely with what Nick's saying. But he's written it down, and that's good. And I do think it's important that we understand things like our history, what we've the greatness, Nick, as you said, the greatness in the United Kingdom and the greatness of the English people. And I'm not seeking to ingratiate myself because, but I can also understand that without England, folks, we would be a very disunited kingdom. And so it's pretty important that we do accept that. Look, along with Morrissey, Nick, you're Manchester's finest. So I want to thank you for giving me your time this evening. I appreciate it so much. Folks, come next Monday night, I'm going to be talking to the comedian Abby Roberts. Some of you might know Abby. She's got a new interesting book out, which is interesting. So, but chat to Abby next week. But listen, thanks again, Nick. And so from Nick and myself, folks, it's good night. Catch you all real soon.